Welcome back to Leadership Devotionals. Today we will be talking about Peter. And this is already the second installment of the case of Peter. And his leadership transformation and journey all throughout while he was with Jesus and how Jesus mentored him. Last time we were talking about Peter's self-serving vision. Today, we will be talking about Peter's overestimated abilities. You see, Peter was a kind of assertive person. He was also the kind of person that will take risk, and he will also be the kind of person that thinks he is the spokesperson of the group. And in short, we can say that Peter is some kind of a charismatic person. And research indicate that charismatic leaders tend to downplay their own limitations. And they overestimate their own abilities and often succeed in leading others to look at them in the similar light. So, overestimated abilities minimize cooperative effort in the community since all are more focused on the strengths of the charismatic leader than on the individual abilities of each community member. Again, the problem with overestimating your abilities is that when you overestimate your abilities, you also underestimate your limitations. Now, in the case of Peter, the gospel stories show how Peter overestimates his own ability. There are so many instances, and we will be tackling them one by one. The defining story on this point is Peter's denial of his denial of Jesus. How is that? All four gospel accounts record Peter's stubborn affirmation. Okay? His stubborn affirmation of loyalty to Jesus, even to the point of declaring that he will die for him. The Bible records here in Matthew chapter 26. Matthew chapter 26 verses 31 to 35. I'll be reading from the New King James Version. And Jesus said to them, Jesus said to his disciples, "All of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. And after I have been raised, I will go before you in Galilee." And look how Peter responded. Peter answered and said to him, "Even all are made to stumble. Because of you, I will never be made to stumble." Okay? He made that affirmative declaration. And Jesus said to him, "Assuredly, I say to you that this night, before the rooster crows, you will have denied me 3 times. And there is also the same record we can find in Mark, the same record we can find in Luke, and the same record you can find in John. These are all the same story of Peter's affirmation, even to the point of death. The affirmation of loyalty is clearly an overestimation of his own abilities and an underestimation of his own limitations. Peter's declaration, this kind of declaration, is not an isolated example. Because only a few hours later, Peter again overestimates his own ability. Overestimates his own ability. This time, a few hours later, when he single-handedly pulls out his sword to defend Jesus against a large mob, where this mob were equipped with swords, with gloves, with staves, and even accompanied by a detachment of Roman soldiers. When we read, Matthew 26, Mark 14, Luke 22, we can see that one of the companion of Jesus, when Jesus was betrayed, kissed by Judas, and the crowd, zeroed in on Jesus and tried to grab him. According to Mark, Luke, and Matthew, someone in Jesus, companions pulled out his weapon and hit the ear of the servant of the high priest. But when we read in John chapter 18, it was John who said it was Peter who drew out his sword and hit the ear of Malchus, the servant of the high priest. Jesus rebuked him and said, Peter, put back your swords. It was good. The mob did not, zeroed in on Peter to remove his sword. Just imagine he was just by himself. And the mob was all, armed with swords, staves, clubs, and even there were Roman soldiers there. Clearly, it was Peter who overestimated, again, his own ability to defend Jesus. In fact, Jesus rebuked him and said, don't you know that I can call from my Father 12 legions of angels to defend me? Peter had, in previous experiences, also overestimated his ability to walk on water. When he saw Jesus from a distance, that he was walking on water, he, being the assertive person in the group, he said, Master, can I also walk on water? And when he started to walk on water, probably something crept into his mind and thought it was his own ability to look on water, and so he looked back. He removed his gaze on Jesus, and when he looked back, we know the story that he started to sink. Or the instant where he again overestimated his ability to correctly read and respond to a delicate and social, political situation. This is recorded in Matthew 17. People went to Peter. Peter was with Jesus, and they asked, these people asked Peter, and I read it in Matthew chapter 17, verse 24. It says here, and when they have come to Capernaum, those who received the temple tax, came to Peter and said, does your master not pay temple tax? You know what Peter answered? He said, yes. And when he had come to the house, Jesus anticipated him, saying, what do you think, Simon Peter? From whom do kings of the earth take customs or taxes? From their sons or from strangers? And Peter answered, from strangers. Jesus said to him, then the sons are free? Nevertheless, lest we offend them, go to the sea and cast your net. And of course, he caught a fish with a coin in the mouth. And they used that coin to pay the temple tax. Peter assumed, overestimated his ability, and thought that Jesus wasn't paying that. And Jesus again rebuked him. Or this instant where his ability to enhance a moment of divine revelation. They were there in the Mount of Transfiguration, and Jesus, was glorified by the Father. It was God's way of comforting Jesus. And he sent, Elijah and Moses to be with him. And Peter has, estimated his ability to interpret this divine revelation. He said, Master, if it is okay with you, I'm going to build 3 tabernacles here. I'm going to build 3 altars here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Or Peter's understanding of Jesus' mission. Jesus said he's going to die. This one is recorded in Matthew 16, verse 21 to 23. Jesus said he's going to die in order to save humanity. And you know what Peter did? Peter pulled Jesus aside and rebuked him and said, "You are not going to die, you are the Messiah." Or that instant when the rich young ruler came to Jesus, and Jesus said, the rich young ruler, you obey the Ten Commandments, and the rich young ruler said, "I have obeyed the Ten Commandments." And so in order for you to have eternal life, you sell what you have and give, your riches to the poor. And the rich young ruler went sad. And he said, "Come follow me." Just what Jesus said. And you know what did Peter said in Matthew 19 verse 27? He said to Jesus, "We have forsaken everything. We have left our nets. We have left our family. We have followed you. What's there for us?" His loyalty to Jesus, also in comparison to the 11 disciples, he also overestimated it. In Matthew 26 verse 33, he said, "All may stumble, but not me." Or even his ability to stay awake and pray with Jesus. Matthew chapter 14, verse 47 to 38. In these moments, in all of these moments, Peter overestimates his own understanding and abilities while underestimating Jesus' knowledge and abilities. Imagine, he rebuked Jesus. Fellow leaders, leadership thrives best in a community in which people recognize their own limitations and compensate by cooperating with one another. I repeat this. Leadership thrives best in a community in which people recognize their own limitations and compensate it by cooperating with one another. Jesus knew that. And so, he mentored Peter accordingly. This is just the second installment. We will have 3 or 4 more sessions about the case of Peter. But as Jesus has been patient with Peter through all this, we know the end result. Peter became one of the foundational leaders of the early Christian church. Fellow leaders, the advice for us is not to overestimate our abilities, but rather entrust our abilities to God, and He will multiply it for us, and we will be effective leaders today and tomorrow. God bless you.